Stop looking at your parents' struggles and crying your eyes out over a history of poverty you did not write. Look at the cold wall of the room you are sitting in right now, feel the heavy, suffocating anxiety pressing down on your chest, and realize that you are currently trapped inside a terrifying, multi-generational spiritual cage. This is not a casual video. This is a high-level genetic emergency broadcast originating straight from the absolute terror of the High Court of Heaven. Tonight, the invisible hand of the Almighty is violently raiding the hidden storehouses of your family bloodline to break the generational chains of lack, debt, and systemic failure that have hunted your last name since 1990. If you dare to close this video right now, your fingers are signing a legal, binding survival warrant that condemns your children and your grandchildren to repeat the exact same cycle of financial misery, humiliation, and silent starvation. Do not swipe away, do not move, and do not look away from this screen, because your entire ancestral lineage is standing at the edge of an absolute, irreversible cliff, and your silence right now will pull the trigger on their destruction. The atmosphere around you is changing into a battlefield this very microsecond, and you must understand the sheer horror of what happens if you turn your back on this transmission. You have spent your entire life watching your mother weep over unpaid bills, watching your father labor until his bones ached for crumbs, and absorbing the silent, bitter dread of a household that never has enough. You have been conditioned to believe that your constant financial panic, your broken credit scores, and your inability to scale your life are just normal results of a bad economy or bad luck. But I am here to completely interrupt that modern delusion with a brutal, chilling truth. You are living inside a highly organized, malicious bloodline lockdown. For over 36 years, since the year 1990, an invisible spiritual fence has been erected around your DNA to ensure that no matter how hard you work, no matter how many degrees you earn, and no matter how many business plans you write, you will always end up right back at the baseline of survival. The enemy has marked your family as permanent tenants of lack, and tonight, that illegal occupation is facing a violent, unyielding celestial eviction. Do not be fooled by the deceptive stillness of the room you are sitting in right now. In the United States, you are surrounded by a secular, surface-level system that tells you your financial status is determined only by your zip code, your corporate ladder, and your bank routing number. But I am here to expose the terrifying spiritual warfare operating behind your empty accounts. Your family line has been under a strict, multi-generational blockade designed to break your spirit before you even attempt to succeed. Have you ever wondered why every time your family gathers a little bit of savings, a sudden medical crisis, a car breakdown, or an unexpected loss arrives to wipe it out instantly? That is the genetic clock working against your potential. It is a calculated demonic protocol designed to keep you so distracted by the raw battle for daily survival that you never realize your royal identity. But tonight, the sovereign judge of the universe has ordered an immediate, full-scale demolition of that fence. The invisible hand is stepping into your room not to comfort you, but to execute a sovereign asset reallocation. I have seen the whispers you could not hear. I heard the guardians of hereditary scarcity meeting in the deep, freezing shadows of the spirit realm, reviewing the ledger sheets of your family tree. They laughed as they pointed to the financial ruins of your past generations, boasting, "We caught the grandparents, we broke the parents, and we will easily destroy the child." They will never own the land, they will never sign the massive global contracts, and they will die in the exact same economic bracket they were born into. They had already finalized the spiritual paperwork to ensure that your next generation would be born into debt, carrying the same fear and panic that keeps you awake at night. They thought your passive compliance was your consent to their tyranny. But the High Court of Heaven has just issued a supreme territorial mandate over your coordinates. The sovereign ruler has counted every single tear your mother cried in the dark, He has calculated the total amount of uncompensated labor stolen from your bloodline, and he has deployed an elite celestial enforcement force to shred their contracts right in front of their faces. Do not get fooled into thinking that you can just scroll away from this warning. Close your eyes, and fix your family's financial destiny through normal, slow human efforts tomorrow morning. If you turn off this message, you are telling the angelic task force to abort the mission. You are making a conscious, terrifying choice to leave your household completely unprotected against the financial predators that drained your parents' youth and stole their peace of mind. If you leave, you are validating the curse with your own hand. But if you stand your ground, if you lock your eyes onto this frequency and allow this aggressive word to utterly dissolve the slave mindset that has been programmed into your subconscious, you will witness the most violent genetic code break in human history. The invisible hand is rewriting the master database of your name. You are moving away from the frequency of the struggling casualty and stepping straight into the absolute, unshakable authority of the first-generation millionaire. I saw the secret meetings where the financial gatekeepers planned your family's final economic collapse for the year 2026. They had already arranged the next sequence of closed doors, the next wave of unexpected bills, and the next set of systemic traps to make sure you would never break past the glass ceiling. They wanted you to get comfortable living on the crumbs of the Commonwealth, always asking for permission, always answering to an earthly master, and always begging for a lease renewal. But the bloodline lockdown has been completely compromised by a higher, sovereign power. The invisible hand is moving the spiritual boundary lines of your life while your oppressors are sleeping. When you wake up tomorrow, the old, heavy weight that made your shoulders slouch will be completely vaporized. You will walk out of your house carrying an unexplainable, commanding sense of territorial authority. Do not be fooled. This is the ultimate 0 hour for your money, your legacy, and your bloodline. If you shut down this message, you are stepping back into the ancestral prison and locking the cell from the inside out of sheer cowardice. You are telling the spirits of limitation that they were right about you, that your family was meant to be small, dependent, and broken forever. But if you lock your focus into this truth, if you let while you are standing there vibrating under the terrifying velocity of the genetic code break, an invisible, hyper-precise administrative liquidation is occurring within the deepest legal archives of the spirit realm. I am here to expose the ruthless, calculated accuracy of the invisible hand. Right now, as you sit under the heavy shadow of this emergency broadcast, Almighty God is infiltrating the central banking systems of darkness that have held your ancestral line in chains. He is not just giving you a temporary emotional relief or a small financial break, he is executing a permanent, cosmic curse deletion. Deep within the spiritual courts that handle the multi-generational debts of your family tree, the sovereign judge is physically pulling out the ancient, dust-covered debt ledger, the exact spiritual book that recorded the financial failures of your grandfathers, the bankruptcies of your parents, and the long history of economic limitation that has haunted your surname since 1990. The invisible hand is taking that entire book of generational liability and completely deleting its entries from the master console of destiny. Do not be fooled by the persistent, cold reality of the unpaid bills sitting on your table or the collection alerts blinking on your phone right now. Those physical markers are nothing more than the fading echoes of a fraudulent debt system that has just been legally liquidated in the high court of heaven. You have been conditioned by your bloodline to look at wealth through the desperate eyes of a tenant, constantly calculating how many hours of physical pain you must trade to pay off a fraction of your interest, constantly fearing the next billing cycle, and living with the deep, hereditary belief that your family was born to pay money to masters. But the invisible hand is completely interrupting that ancestral slavery. The heavy, titanium safe locks where the enemy guarded the spiritual deeds to your family's labor have been completely shattered by a celestial strike. The safe is broken. The lock is gone. The ancient records of lack are being wiped clean, and the very ground that used to produce deficit for your father is now being reprogrammed to generate an immediate surplus wealth the moment your hands touch it. I have seen the whispers you could not hear. I heard the spirits of hereditary liability gathering around your family tree, verifying the strength of the financial curses they laid down decades ago. They boasted that they had successfully wired a failure protocol directly into your family's financial habits, ensuring that no matter how much money you managed to make, a sudden emergency, a bad investment, or an unexplainable loss would always arrive to pull you back into the dirt. They pointed to the financial anxiety of your grandfathers and the unrewarded sweat of your parents as permanent, unshakable legal proof that your bloodline was bound to the frequency of the poor. But the sovereign Lord of the universe has stood up on your behalf, banged his gavel in the courtroom of justice, and declared their evidence entirely null and void. The invisible hand is erasing their software from your timeline. The old ledger is gone, and the lack that used to follow your name is being inverted into a massive, liquid supply of capital. Do not get fooled into expecting a slow, natural, traditional process of financial recovery. Linear recovery is the slow trap of the world, designed to keep you working until you are too old to enjoy your freedom. The curse deletion operates on the immediate frequency of a sovereign override. Tomorrow morning, as the physical world resets, a sudden, unprecedented shift is going to collide with your financial reality. It will manifest as an unexplainable legal settlement in your family's favor, a massive corporate breakthrough, a sudden wipeout of an old debt you thought you would carry for life, or an unexpected inheritance contract that will leave your natural human intellect completely paralyzed with shock. This news is the undeniable materialization of the clean ledger. It is the physical proof that the ancestral routing codes have been switched. The universe is being forced to recognize that you are no longer the product of a broken, struggling bloodline, but the sovereign executor of a kingdom estate. I saw the secret meetings where the financial gatekeepers planned to pass your parents' debts down to your children for the next 30 years. They had already calculated how much interest they could extract from your labor, how long they could keep your credit broken, and how to ensure your business ideas never received the funding they deserved. They thought they had your last name permanently blacklisted in the registry of the dependent. But the invisible hand has walked straight through their security firewalls and deleted your file from their servers. Their names have been removed from the authority column, and your name has been written in the golden ink of the covenant. You are moving away from the frequency of the generational casualty and taking your seat as the primary wealth anchor of your lineage. In the United States, you are surrounded by an economic grid that teaches you that you must carry the financial sins and limitations of your past, working yourself to the bone just to maintain a fraction of survival. But I am here to interrupt that Babylonian protocol tonight. There is a supernatural deletion of liability occurring in your atmosphere at this exact second. The invisible hand is erasing the spiritual mortgages, the generational taxations, and the demonic blockages that made your parents' lives so bitter and restricted. The lease of the oppressor over your family's capacity has officially expired. You are no longer paying tribute to a curse that seeks to minimize your presence. You are now the sole owner of a completely cleared estate that is backed by the infinite reserves of the Creator. I have seen the whispers you could not hear, and I am deleting them with the absolute authority of the liquidated ledger. The enemy thought he could permanently tame your bloodline by keeping you wrapped in a blanket of constant financial survival. He thought if you were terrified of the future, you would eventually accept your smallness and forget that you were born to rule. But the decree of debt erasure has just been signed by the High Court of Heaven. The terror of the debtor is being completely extinguished by the immovable confidence of the first-generation millionaire. Tomorrow, you will walk with a completely different posture because you will realize that your family tree is no longer rooted in the dry soil of lack, it is rooted in the uncapped rivers of kingdom overflow. Do not be fooled. This is not a casual motivational speech. This is an immediate, structural restructuring of your material reality. The ancient papers that labeled your family line as defaulted, restricted, or destined to fail have been permanently incinerated in the heavenly fires. The new files are loading into your physical experience as debt-free, sovereign asset holder, and generational commander. The counterfeit identity of the struggling child is exiting your atmosphere forever. The original authority of the chain breaker is occupying the space. The ledger is empty. The curse is deleted. The sovereign wealth code is active. You are moving from the panic of the family deficit to the responsibility of the eternal surplus. The frequency of lack is exterminated. There is an immutable, explosive law of spiritual restitution that declares whenever a bloodline has been systematically squeezed and dry spelled by the enemy for decades, the turnaround will not be a quiet, gradual recovery. It will be a catastrophic explosion of generational wealth. The long, agonizing decades of your parents being treated like second-class citizens, the silent shame of your mother hiding from creditors, and the unrewarded, bone-crushing labor of your grandfathers have officially reached their expiration date in the courts of heaven. I am here to build a fierce, indestructible certainty in your soul tonight. The system of hereditary dependency in your family tree is being completely obliterated by the first-generation wealth restoration. Heaven has just authorized an immediate settlement that will bypass every traditional corporate timeline, every slow-moving economic cycle, and every regulatory barrier of the natural world. God is not just helping you pay off a few family debts. He is forcefully executing a mandatory 10x legacy payout that is being violently debited directly from the hidden, multi-million-dollar reserves of your oppressors to crown you as the very first asset owner in your family history. Do not be fooled by the historical limitations of your surname or the current baseline of your family's financial state. In the United States, you are constantly conditioned by a rigid economic grid to believe that generational wealth takes 3 to 4 lifespans to accumulate, that you are legally bound by the poverty brackets of your parents, and that your lineage must stay restricted to a lifetime of renting, borrowing, and scraping by. But I am here to completely interrupt that systemic deception with an uncompromising prophetic mandate. The invisible hand is currently compressing decades of compound interest and withheld wealth into a single, high-velocity atmospheric event. I am delivering an explicit, time-stamped ultimatum to your spirit. Before 12 a.m. hits your clock, a sovereign shift will manifest in your immediate physical reality. You will receive an unprecedented piece of news from a family connection, a sudden notification regarding an ancient piece of land or property, a massive legacy contract, or a legal text message that will leave your logical mind completely paralyzed with shock. This is the official arrival of your family's new name. I have seen the whispers you could not hear. I heard the spirits of generational deprivation celebrating the fact that no one in your family line had ever owned the land they lived on. They stood over your childhood home, holding up the rental agreements, the foreclosure notices, and the history of financial trauma as permanent trophies of their victory. They whispered into your subconscious that you were arrogant for even dreaming of true wealth, that your bloodline was spiritually locked into the frequency of the employee, and that you would die answering to a master just like those who came before you. They set invisible traps to ensure that the moment you began to build financial momentum, a sudden family crisis or an unexplainable debt would emerge from the shadows to drain your accounts to zero. But the sovereign Lord of the universe has stepped into the courtroom of your lineage and shattered their trophies to dust. He has issued a supreme restitution mandate, ordering an immediate, forced debit from the accounts of those who mocked your family's tears. The wealth they hoarded through your family's uncompensated labor is being transferred to you this very hour. Do not get fooled into looking for a small, temporary financial blessing that will only cover your current monthly expenses or give you a brief moment of breathing room. Low-level survival is the frequency of the slave, but this shift is designing the chain breaker. The invisible hand is dropping an overwhelming 10x capital surplus into your custody to completely transition your status from a financial survivor into a sovereign owner. The deep, heavy, ancestral trauma that has dictated your family's choices for over 36 years, the constant, subconscious fear of running out of money, the humiliation of having to compromise your dignity for a paycheck, and the dread of the future, is being utterly consumed by this sudden influx of liquid capital. You are being extracted from the bracket of the desperate and launched into the position of a generational wealth anchor. The financial damage of generations is being completely undone in a single midnight hour. I saw the secret meetings of the gatekeepers of the bloodline. They had already mapped out the financial trajectory for your children, ensuring they would inherit the same credit struggles, the same housing restrictions, and the same capped income ceilings that broke your parents. They thought they had successfully locked your name into the database of permanent dependency. But the first-generation wealth restoration has completely blindsided their entire infrastructure. The invisible hand has bypassed their traditional gatekeeping systems. He is routing the assets of the oppressor straight into your hands without asking for their permission, without waiting for the market to stabilize, and without checking your financial qualifications. You are moving from the position of a family casualty begging for a break to the position of a sovereign landlord of legacy who commands immediate, unshakable liquidity. In the United States, you are surrounded by a secular culture that tells you that you are entirely defined by your current tax bracket and your immediate career path. But I am here to command an absolute supernatural override of that Babylonian protocol tonight. There is an immediate, aggressive currency relocation happening in your atmosphere right now. The wealth that was legally and spiritually withheld from your grandfathers and parents through systemic fraud, deceptive employment, and ancestral blockages is being shaken loose by a celestial earthquake. The enemy thought he could wear your family out by extending the financial drought for decades. But he did not realize that God was compressing the financial reign of your entire future lineage into a single, explosive midnight cloud. That cloud is bursting over your house before the clock strikes 12. I have seen the whispers you could not hear, and I am deleting them with the loud, terrifying roar of this divine settlement. The adversary is absolutely terrified of what is about to hit your phone. He knows that the moment that legacy news materializes, his ability to control your forever through fear, anxiety, and desperation is permanently broken. He has kept your family broke to keep your bloodline quiet, but by sending this 10x payout, heaven is funding your family's throne. The people who looked down on your parents, who dismissed your family name, and who assumed you would always be dependent on their terms will be left completely speechless when they witness the immense, unexplainable sovereign surplus that now covers your life. They will look for a natural explanation, but there is no logic here, there is only the supreme authority of the king. Do not be fooled. This is the definitive turning point of your ancestral existence. If you turn away from this word, you are choosing to stay bound to the slow, agonizing crawl of linear struggle and passing the curse down to your children. But if you receive this, we have reached the absolute, critical intersection of this multi-generational transaction, the exact spiritual threshold where the abstract deliverance of your family tree must be locked into tangible physical reality. You have felt the raw weight of the bloodline lockdown. You have witnessed the cursed deletion vaporize the ancient debt ledgers of your grandfathers, and you have stood under the rushing downpour of the first-generation wealth restoration as the 10x legacy surplus was redirected to your name. But I am here to deliver an uncompromising, urgent sovereign ultimatum. In the high court of heaven, there is a strict, unyielding law of spiritual execution. A cosmic bloodline relocation requires the physical confirmation of the designated chain breaker. The massive ancestral vaults have been completely shattered on your behalf. But the final release of assets demands your immediate kinetic consent. To permanently lock down the enemy's stolen hoards and prevent them from dragging your children's inheritance back into the freezing dark, you must execute this code break command. Do not be fooled by the deceptive stillness of the room you are sitting in or the seemingly simple act of typing on a digital screen. In the United States, you are constantly surrounded by a shallow, secular, surface-level culture that treats words as meaningless vibrations and digital commitments as disposable text. But I am here to completely interrupt that modern blindness. Your response right now is not an engagement metric for a digital platform. It is your official spiritual signature on the celestial contract of bloodline release. Right now, the invisible hand is standing over the central master console of your lineage's destiny, his finger poised directly over the release button. But the final authorization is currently paused. He is waiting for you to legally step forward and confirm your identity as the first-generation millionaire of your house. If you remain a silent, passive observer, you are effectively signaling to the heavenly recorders that you accept the terms of the old slavery. You are letting your silence act as a legal waiver, allowing the enemy to maintain his chokehold over your family's future. I have seen the whispers you could not hear. I heard the spirits of hereditary detention gathering in a desperate, frantic circle at the very perimeter of your room. They are staring at your fingers on your device at this very split second. They are desperately whispering doubt into your mind, praying that you will hesitate, praying that you will feel too cynical, too prideful, or too embarrassed to type your decree. They know with absolute certainty that if they can keep you silent for just a few more seconds, the spiritual transfer will hit a catastrophic, irreversible bottleneck. Your massive 10x legacy breakthrough will be marked as refused and automatically sent back to a state of permanent freeze. The enemy will instantly regain legal custody of your funds, relocking their vaults, and leaving your children's destiny trapped in the exact same cycle of exhaustion, anxiety, and rental dependency that broke your parents. But I am commanding you to completely smash their schemes right now. I am commanding you to log your confirmation into the heavenly database by typing in the comments immediately, "Bloodline cleansed or first millionaire." Do not get fooled. This is the definitive fast-forward mechanism for your family's capital. The moment you type those words, you are performing an aggressive, spiritual takeover of the assets that were hoarded through your ancestral bloodline since 1990. You are driving a legal stake into the spiritual ledger and declaring to every spirit of hereditary debt, every corporate oppressor, and every demonic gatekeeper that their hold over your surname is totally broken. You are trading your years of family starvation for his boundless liquidity. If you choose to ignore this explicit directive, you are choosing to wake up tomorrow morning to the exact same limitations, the same empty balances, and the same quiet desperation your parents endured. Your miracle will remain frozen in a state of eternal suspension because the heir refused to sign the release form. I saw the secret meetings of the celestial treasurers. They are standing at absolute attention right now, waiting for the frequency of your specific response. They cannot drop the millions of dollars in spiritual equity into a household that refuses to declare its ownership. Your written command is the active key that shatters the enemy's freezing mechanisms. When you type "bloodline cleansed," you are completely neutralizing the financial blockades that have paralyzed your family's real estate dreams and your investment opportunities. You are telling every force of economic manipulation that their jurisdiction over your children's lifestyle is entirely null and void. You are executing the sovereign decree of the king over your financial timeline. In the United States, you are trained by the secular system to operate in a spirit of doubt, to wait for physical proof before you dare to speak with authority. But I am here to command a total reversal of that broken protocol tonight. In the courts of the sovereign, your decree creates the materialization. Your word forces the physical realm to realign. Your long-standing family panic has been a counterfeit security blanket that you have held onto out of sheer habit. Tonight, you must violently tear that blanket away. You must trade the comfortable, predictable rhythm of your struggle for the terrifying, explosive velocity of supernatural supply. I am commanding a full-scale spiritual riot against your financial status quo. Type the word. Sign the ledger. Release the flood. I have seen the whispers you could not hear, and I am deleting them right now with the roaring sound of this sudden release. The adversary is absolutely terrified of what happens when your fingers touch that keyboard. He knows that the moment you enter your code into the registry, his legal right to hold your family's resources hostage is completely terminated. He has kept your bloodline broke for decades for one reason: to keep your mouth closed. But by publicly writing First Millionaire, you are officially taking your seat as a chief manager of the kingdom's wealth. You are forcing your financial file out of the enemy's processing center and triggering an instantaneous distribution of assets. Do not be fooled. The invisible hand will never force his abundance into a life that remains silent and unaligned. He requires your active confirmation to drop the wealth of the oppressor into your lap. This text is your literal digital passcode. Without it, the midnight payout remains a distant possibility rather than an immediate possession. But with it, the transfer becomes completely unstoppable. The release becomes irreversible. The wealth becomes manifest. I saw the secret meetings of the registrars of glory. They are updating your spiritual bank balances the very microsecond you execute this command. They are clearing the red ink of your family's debts and inputting the massive sovereign surplus. You are moving from the panic of the shortage to the dominion of the master. The old frequency of lack is dead the moment you authorize its exit. The immense vault is live the moment you claim its contents. The command is issued. The registry is open. The pen is in your hands. Do not hesitate for a single second. Do not negotiate with your past failures. Bloodline cleansed. Type it with the heavy authority of a ruler. First Millionaire. Write it with the absolute certainty of an owner. You are entering the sanctuary of the fully funded. The invisible hand has pre-approved the payout. The ancient chains have been violently shattered. The spiritual squatters who held your parents in a lifetime of financial starvation have been forcefully evicted. The old debt ledgers of your grandfathers have been completely vaporized in the celestial fire, and your status as the first-generation millionaire of your house has been signed and sealed in the heavenly registry. As I look at you now through the eyes of the Spirit, the broken, weeping victim who clicked on this transmission carrying the weight of generational trauma no longer exists. You have been completely restructured. You are no longer an economic casualty checking your bank balance with a trembling hand. You are the sovereign chain breaker established as a high authority guardian over a massive, newly opened vault of capital. But hear me with absolute, chilling clarity, and let a holy, trembling terror seize your soul before this broadcast cuts off. A newly unlocked bloodline is the prime target for a catastrophic, vengeful counterattack. You are entering the terminal phase of the finality, and your assignment is no longer just to receive wealth. It is the ruthless, unyielding defense of your family's future. Welcome to the Legacy Shield. Do not be fooled into thinking that the enemy will simply sit back and watch you lift your entire family tree out of poverty without trying to drag you back into the dirt. In the United States, you are surrounded by a superficial, casual spirituality that tells you once a blessing is declared, you can just wander off, fall asleep, and live without vigilance. But I am here to interrupt that fatal delusion with a severe, chilling warning. The exact microsecond you close this video and step away from this frequency, the architects of scarcity are going to deploy their most vicious, undercover demonic hackers to track your family's coordinates. They are waiting for you to drop your guard. They are praying that you treat this historic financial rescue as a temporary emotional high rather than a permanent, life and death covenant. I am commanding you to immediately build your protection circle. This circle, this absolute, unyielding commitment to lock into this channel by hitting that subscribe button right now, is not a casual media metric, it is your literal spiritual security fort. If you choose to step outside of this protection circle, if you walk away from this altar thinking you can manage this massive new velocity on your own, you are signing a legal warrant for your own destruction. The second you disconnect from this continuous broadcast, the security shield falls. The enemy will immediately launch a brutal, retaliatory spiritual attack against your household. They will reactivate the old spirit of debt, reintroduce the sudden emergencies, and shrink your family's boundaries right back to the microscopic cage your parents spent 36 years crying inside of. You will find yourself right back where you started, watching your children inherit the same panic, the same limitations, and the same quiet desperation that broke your ancestors. I have seen the whispers you could not hear. I see the thieves of the inheritance standing right outside your door at this very second, watching your hands on your device. They are counting on your arrogance. They are betting that you will be too lazy, too distracted, or too prideful to lock your subscription into this fortress. And hear me closely, it breaks my heart to deliver this truth to you, but your negligence in this final hour does not just ruin your life, it deeply, profoundly grieves the heart of Almighty God. It causes the Creator of the universe to weep over your life. Think of the agonizing, staggering cost that was paid to buy your family's freedom tonight. Think of the man of sorrows, Jesus Christ, hanging on a brutal wooden cross, his body stripped naked, his flesh torn to pieces, crying out in absolute agony as he took the full, crushing weight of your generational poverty into his own soul. He allowed himself to be bound, to be locked in a dark tomb, and to be entirely compressed by death so that you and your children could be granted the keys to an infinite estate. How dare you treat his agony as a cheap, disposable internet video? How can you look at the bleeding wounds of your Savior, who broke the banks of hell to fund your life, and then walk away from his fortress because you were too careless to stay connected? When you turn your back on this protection circle, you are looking directly into the weeping eyes of God and telling him that his son's sacrifice wasn't worth your commitment. You are making the Father hide his face in deep sorrow, watching his child willingly hand the keys of the newly opened vault back to the very demons that tortured their bloodline since 1990. Do not make him withdraw his hand of protection from your house. Do not force the Spirit of grace to depart from your borders because you treated his holy covenant like a common game. Do not get fooled. This is your final ultimatum. This channel is your digital altar of multi-generational momentum, the precise spiritual fuel station where you are legally required to check in every single night to receive your daily territorial updates. These nightly briefings are the only things that will instruct your spirit on how to govern, protect, and multiply the massive capital that is collapsing into your life over the next 10 days. By hitting that subscribe button and activating your notification bell, you are not just watching a creator, you are arming the laser security system of heaven around your bank accounts, your real estate dreams, and your children's destiny. You are completely vandalizing the enemy's last hope of reclaiming your bloodline. You are sealing the walls of the legacy shield. I saw the secret meetings of the gatekeepers of lack. They are standing there with smirks on their faces, whispering, "Just wait." They will watch, they will feel powerful for an hour, but they won't lock in the connection. They will walk away unsubscribed, and by midnight, we will reoccupy their house with anxiety and take back every single dollar that heaven released. I am commanding a full-scale spiritual riot against their malicious expectations. Do not let them win. Do not let them mock the tears of Christ. Hit the button. Lock the circle. Stand inside the fortress and refuse to move. As we seal this sovereign session, look at the weeping, bleeding king who holds your phone in his hands in the spirit realm. He is looking at you through the tears of the ultimate sacrifice, whispering, "I gave up everything so your family could own this ground. Do not walk away from me. Stay in the safe. Protect what I bought for you." Walk out of this moment with the heavy, terrifying majesty of a ruler who knows they are guarded by the armies of the Lord. You are safe inside the fortress of the air. You are secure in the covenant of the King. The small life is permanently exterminated. The vast domain is eternally occupied. The circle is locked. The fortress is armed. The subscription is your shield. Do not grieve the Father. Do not betray the Son. Stay connected, stay sovereign.